Hey there, my name is Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For today's episode, I talked to Hank Donato of Beemer. This yachtless yacht rock band put out their debut self-titled record in June of this year, and I got a chance to sit down with Hank and learn about the ins and outs of this release because it's full of those little moments that play on the funny, the awkward, and the human parts of life. And I even got to learn about the band's relationship with local super producer Bud Hootley. It's Hank of Beemer, and he's right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Good morning, Hank. How's it going?
Good morning, man. It's great to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So for people who don't know, you used to be a worship leader at Calvary, and so that's how I met you. But I had known your previous project, John Chuck in the Class, a little bit. Mm-hmm. We'll probably jump into just not that specifically, but we'll talk a little bit about your history of music in just a little bit. But I appreciate you coming by.
Absolutely. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, man. An honor.
Yeah, of course. So first, I like to ask bands kind of what's your descriptor for Beemer? So like, you have your Christmas, your Thanksgiving, someone goes, oh, you make music. I mean, you've probably had this discussion on and off for the last X number of years, but you're like, so what is that? What kind of band is it? So how do you describe to Beemer to people who maybe aren't in the know?
Yeah, that comes with the territory of starting a new project and having to describe it to fans of all ages. So let's see. I have recently been saying some sort of yacht rock, just because that's a big influence for a lot of us, and kind of what's, I guess, shaped our sound maybe the most significantly, or I don't know. I think that's the closest kind of comparison that I could say. So yeah, yacht rock. Recently did like a Instagram poll to see if people would enjoy a play on that of some sort that would be more accurate. Like we're not boat shoes actually owning yachts, yacht rock. We like to be a little bit more approachable. So we went with like landlocked yacht rock and maybe something more experimental yacht rock. Something that breaks out of the yacht rock mold. So trying to get real niche with the genre descriptors there, but
put as many as in there. Yeah, put as many tags on the Bandcamp as possible.
Yeah, don't worry. Unpretentious rock, yacht rock maybe.
Yeah, which makes sense. The breaking of the mold, given like how expansive your musical creativity output has been over the last few years. So that kind of leads me into my next question, which talk to me about your history with music. What made you want to start doing it? What made you start writing it? And what brought you to here?
Yeah, man. Wow. I should have prepped for this one, but my summary would be that, my mom was, played piano for a long time. So it was kind of just a matter of time before she was like, yeah, we got to get you lessons. But through learning classical stuff, I started to write my own music just through influences kind of combined with what my dad was listening to, was just like classic rock and yacht rock. So a lot of Michael McDonald, and the Eagles and Heart and other. I mean, not just yacht rock, but all those other acts. And so it was. I don't know, man. I was trying to use those classical piano chops and write some more accessible pop songs, and so that just kind of lent itself to doing some just like piano rock projects in high school, and then my friends getting me into other music, and so did hip hop and got into production just because I really liked the idea of like, bigger arrangements, not just, playing on a solo instrument, but like creating all the different sounds that go into a song. So yeah, man, production was kind of an intro, kind of the opening for me into like, wow, I can explore these other genres and how they are put together. And so helped me kind of break down and combine genres in those different ways in my writing and producing. So so I was part of a group in high school called Morning Person, and then and then with a friend from childhood, created John Chuck in the Class, which was me and JC, who's a rapper, and so I was doing the music, and then I would say like 2020 or 2021, I met Caleb Anderson of Calvin Heights. You know, he had done some other projects, and we started writing together, and that kind of formed. He kind of really encouraged me, along with other people, to start, you know, doing these songs that have had a lot of time just sitting around in my head for a long time, but you know, being in other projects in the hip hop space, essentially, you know, mainly, I didn't really have an outlet for those, but yeah, he and others have encouraged me to go forward with these and start Beemer. So that's kind of history that I can offer.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. What kind of what was your first music that you felt was your own? Because like I think everybody has their like, yeah, my dad listens to, you know, Heart. I remember listening to the greatest hits of Hearts in the truck going to and from like family vacation, and then you know you have your mom. But like, what was your first like piece of music that you're like, this is mine, and it kind of really excited you about it?
Yeah, you mean like other
that wasn't quite
other influences. Yeah. I mean, it really traces back to the pop punk of the time, which was Reliant K. It was like the big. It was actually a moment that I remember pretty clearly of like. You know, I was listening to mostly like, I don't know, older stuff, and I just did my parents' stuff, and I don't know how until like, you know, 6th or 7th grade, my friends were like, you haven't heard of like Reliant K? You haven't listened to these types of bands? So that was really my gateway into the broader world of music. So I would say, honestly, the first music that I was like, yeah, this is me and my friends. This is the cool band at the moment that got me excited was Reliant K. Yeah. So
funny.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, man. I mean, not a lot of pop punk influence in what I do now, but definitely learned a lot from that songwriting and just like talking to my friends about what they liked about the music and what I liked about it. Helped me figure out like, oh yeah, I appreciate this about the writing or the production, and figure out where I wanted to go with music.
Yeah. So you said in 2020 you met Caleb, and that's kind of when Beemer started being a thing. So who else kind of rounds out Beemer?
Yeah.
And so is it primarily a you-driven project with extra cast, or kind of talk to me about the band itself?
Right. Yeah. I've known a lot of these guys for a long time. So they've influenced me, but yeah, I do primarily the writing, and you know, but like the parts themselves are written mostly by the other guys, which are Cooper Doughton, who's the bassist, and Reese Kling. I've known them for you know, since like 2012 or 2011, and Reese Kling is the drummer, and then we've got Luke Enyart, who I met like right before we started recording the project. Really fortuitous meeting, and he's a guitarist, and then Caleb, of course, is producer. Plus, you know, he adds a lot of extra stuff that's, you know, really inspiring and creative. So but he mainly plays nylon or acoustic guitars and sings. So that's the 5 of us.
Awesome. So let's talk about the self-titled debut, which is coming out end of June. It'll probably be out by the time this podcast comes out. So talk to me about writing the album. And you've kind of mentioned this already, and I was snooping a little bit, but a lot of these songs, or at least some of these songs, have been around for a few years here. I think I saw somewhere that sounds like it has been around since like 2015 and stuff like that. So talk to me about writing this and where a lot of this was coming from.
Yeah. A lot of it was kind of a hodgepodge of just like, I had these ideas that I had either in, you know, notes or voice memos, or, you know, demoed projects for years and years. And yeah, exactly. Sounds Like is one of the oldest. And they're just pieces, usually little musical snippets and ideas that I just never finished. So, but the newer aspects of it were kind of the lyrics and the full arrangement of them. So they're kind of, I don't know, they're just kind of like Frankenstein parts of songs put together. But you know, a lot of them share the same theme of like not taking yourself too seriously, and you know, it kind of just being tongue in cheek. You know, the music is, you know, I want to keep it fun, and there are some serious topics. But overall, it's just me kind of lyrically, at least, it's a lot about just grappling with awkward moments in life, and you know, I want to write about, you know, I'm trying to write about moments in life that don't get their due. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, love songs and breakup songs and you know, feeling lonely songs and whatnot. And I try to write about, you know, all the moments in between all of that. And so that's kind of, the lyrics are just kind of written pretty, I don't know, hastily is one word, but also just like, they kind of came about pretty quickly compared to the rest of the music. And so this album is a lot over a long span of time, has come together. But I think with the help of the other guys, has come together to be something we're really proud of and cohesive. So, yeah.
What was the conversation like when you kind of unearthed these? Because obviously, I think every songwriter has that hard drive or that cloud doc or cloud folder full of just like, here's stuff that could be music, but I don't know what to do with it. So is that like you were sitting with Caleb one day and said, I have these ideas that I kind of want to fill out? Or was it, I want to kind of breathe some new life into this music? What was that process, or what was that conversation like?
Yeah. I mean, it, especially with songs like Sounds Like, which were pretty much, you know, musically all there, and demoed out. But I kind of wanted to redo. There was very much like a, you know, a kind of a gentle push from Caleb to quit procrastinating and like actually go from 90% done to 100% done. So they were close, but other ones were, you know, stuff I would show. It was primarily Caleb and some of the other guys too, of just like, I don't know, does this sound like a possible song? Should I keep going with this and write out a chorus and bridge and whatnot? And it was kind of going from there. It was just like, I wanted a Rick Rubin or someone to be like, yeah, that's worth you know, fleshing out. So, it was, you know, and then some just kind of like materialized pretty quickly. Just, you know, a couple of them like Jaws and whatnot were just kind of came about from like, being with this group, you know, playing and tracking other songs with this group, and being inspired by that. So, and those just kind of popped out of existence from that. So, lot of different avenues into that, but somehow we ended up at enough songs to do an album. We didn't have any intention of doing a full album all at once, but just kind of happened, man. Yeah. And I'm happy about that. So yeah.
So about when did you have, you know, it's like 9 songs put together. When did you feel like you had that list? And were there some that didn't make it because of you know, there's just, you couldn't think of the thing there at the time, or was it just like, we have these songs, let's get them out? Yeah,
there are a couple of songs that were just kind of like, you know, the fact, you know, time, and also just like didn't quite fit into, you know, one of them we just didn't really know where to go with it to get it to fit into the project, but you know, we'll probably keep working on it. I don't love the idea of, you know, a song idea just being dead. Yeah. You know, I try to recycle ideas and, you know, breathe new life into them when, if possible. You just need to find a path for them. So, but you know, it was just, we tracked like 5 songs last spring all together as a band, live tracked them, and then a couple more that fall or summer, and then one or two of them it was just Caleb and I that we just kind of did in the box, so to say, so to speak, and just kind of did, you know, track piano and guitar at our homes and put together like that. So I think at some point I was just like, someone asked me to take stock of what I had, how many songs we had, and I was actually surprised. I was like, wow, we got some material here. So it was fun. You know, yeah, but there's you know, another song that's pretty much fully mixed and mastered that'll come out after the album that's ready, and then another one, you know, man, we got enough in the pipeline to keep this thing going at least. So that's where we're at. Yeah.
Awesome. And you said something during kind of talking about some of the stuff you were pulling from your writing that I really liked, which was trying to lean into those moments that don't get their due. So talk to me about those moments, because I can think of, you know, the most recent single that was released yesterday as a recording, like a conversation on NYE, and some of those other, which have those, like, it feels like that really quiet chat you have when you're like maybe outside having a smoke or whatever. And you find those pieces throughout the record. So talk to me about those moments for you and what you feel moments don't get their due.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these moments, you know, involve the people who have, you know, inspired these songs, obviously, but other, you know, people who are in the band too. And or in my family. And so it's just kind of like, it's also just realizing how, like, those little moments that you know, trying to figure out why they stick with you. And it's almost like, you know, whereas, you know, nothing really big, it's not a big event or anything like that, but you wonder, you know, like months later, like, why do I still remember that, you know, that conversation or this and that? And I kind of start to realize, like, oh, that's because that moment kind of encapsulated like a bigger narrative or story about my relationship with this person. And like it being kind of a good example, like, you know, it would be tough to write about a decade-long friendship with somebody, but to get down to just like a, you know, a few minute conversation moment and realize after the fact, like, it's cool to realize like our dynamics as friends come out in these funny little snippets and ways. And so, you know, the conversation was that way. You know, broader songs about like broader topics like Jaws and Perfect Solution and whatnot are just kind of like poems essentially that kind of came out of just me feeling, you know, either frustrated or curious about some facet of life. Like Jaws is kind of just about like, you know, me trying to go between the struggle between feeling the push to grind and to, you know, be successful by the world standards, versus just wanting to relax and remove myself from that hustle, you know? So, yeah, man, a variety of stuff. I mean, those awkward moments can include just you being by yourself and thinking like, why are my thoughts circling this topic? And, you know, writing about it is one way to figure them out in a way.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jaws, because that's that line, when the older me gets a hold of me, I wish him well, or I wish you well. And I just think of how like evocative that line is.
Oh, thank you, man.
Which is one of the first, especially when listening through at least the playlist you sent me, just like really stuck out.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's I went out to dinner with my mom a couple weeks ago, and you know, if you're a creative person, there's an interesting relationship with your parents where you realize like they've seen the most intimate parts of you as you grow up. But then when you start to make art, they're like, where did this come from? What are you talking about here? And you realize like, oh man, I gotta explain to my mom why I say, oh well to hell, like with, you know, what happens with the older me or whatever. And I'm, you know, realizing like, you know, Mom, I am coming to terms with, you know, getting older and you know, just realizing that, you know, I don't have to be buttoned up for my parents or for anyone. You know, I can just say like whatever happens, que sera, sera sort of thing, and I don't have to have all the answers to what my lyrics mean. But I am honored you find that a significant line. Yeah, man, thank you.
As a songwriter, do you like when you hit those perfect little lines, do you kind of realize it in the moment? Because I even think of like sounds like it's like God pulling my pants down with no bully present, stuff like that. Yeah. Is that just kind of like a man, that's it? That's the moment? Or is it just like you put it to paper and you're just like, let's move on to the next verse kind of thing?
Yeah, you know, I kind of, those lines specifically are kind of like summaries of the whole song, it seems like. And so when I write those, I in a way I'm like, yeah, I should kind of just like, you know, in a way I'm almost like, oh, is this kind of a lazy thing to like summarize the song like this? But then I look back and I'm like, you know, yeah, I can't help but try to write these pithy little tweets essentially that try to summarize the song as a whole. And so, yeah, man, but after the fact, I'm more excited by what people find to be striking lines that stick with them. So no, I don't realize it in the moment to describe that. But it's been fun to get that feedback.
Yeah. As someone who is a composer on top of being a songwriter, how big is that process for you? Especially since you're working with other guys now. It's not like it's just you. I mean, you've probably always been pretty collaborative outside of, I think Garland is your solo project, and then you did the Christmas thing with your wife, which is Abby and my partner, was listening to it this morning just because it's fun.
Yeah, in June, man.
Yeah.
Get you in the mood.
Absolutely.
For Christmas.
But how much are you letting go for that process, and how much are you kind of making sure you keep a hold on getting that moment right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I would love to say that it's more collaborative. You know, and I think that's what the pandemic has kind of taught me, is the value of like, you know, I kind of was in a groove of like, you know, I was involved in all these projects where I was playing with other people and playing live a lot, to the point where I was able to, you know, I quit my salary job right before COVID because I was like, all right, we're gonna look at all these gigs. I'm gonna keep, you know, do this as a full-time thing. And anyway, got kicked in the butt from that. But when everything shut down, I realized like, oh, I really do miss the indescribable kind of magic that happens when you let go of your own musical thought or idea and just like hand it off and see what someone else goes with that. And so even though a lot of this music kind of lends itself to just being like, you know, my songwriting, and kind of presenting it to the broader group, I still wanted to find those moments where I said like, I either have a very clear idea or I have no idea at all of what this, you know, bass or guitar part should be. So what do you think? What do you feel like would fit in the songwriting process? You know, Luke or Caleb or Cooper, and letting them kind of trusting that they have like played and have the instincts as writers themselves, for their part to contribute to the song, and trusting that. I think that's the magic that I think is sometimes lost with like this new age of everyone having their own little, it's wonderful that everyone has a little home studio and is able to do their own thing. But man, I just don't want to lose the magic of, like letting your ideas be open-ended and trusting like that you don't need to micromanage to get your vision complete or to have a complete vision even. You know, the other people can come around and make it better than the sum of its parts.
I love that magic that comes with the studio being in a group. The band I'm playing, we're finishing up our record, and I was laying down some steel guitar, and I was like, what do we do here? I have no idea. And we're like, let's just turn everything on and just pin the amplifier and see what happens.
Yeah.
And getting those moments is like what makes music sometimes really magical.
Totally is. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Talk to me. Do you have a specific moment where you're like, I don't know where to put this here, and you asked, Caleb or Cooper, to really kind of fill it in, and it just that was the thing that really popped for you, or
I mean, man, there were a lot of this, maybe like 6 or 7 songs. Kind of the core of them were all live tracked, with all 5 of us, or 4 of us with Caleb doing the engineering. All playing together, and that was I had never done that really to a significant degree, and so a lot of it was kind of like, oh, we are rehearsing, but we're also paying for studio time, so we're kind of figuring out in the moment, but that was intentional. It wasn't like oh crap, I forgot to clarify who plays what at this point, but more of just like, oh, okay, that little bit of pressure's on to like healthy pressure to say like, what would make sense? What would you want to hear at this point? And some of those moments I feel like, oh man, there were, so like Luke, our guitarist, we were up at my parents' cabin in Wisconsin. That was the first like 5 songs we tracked last spring. We all set up, and Luke's amp was in a closet somewhere, and I don't know if it was by accident or what, but he like turned on this really extreme like distortion for Sounds Like, and as we were starting Sounds Like, and I had the idea of Sounds Like kind of being a quiet-ish song, as compared to maybe like the demo stuff, but then when we kind of heard like him just come out with this huge like punk tone, I was like, we got to make this thing like really big and dramatic, and like lean into the juxtaposition between the soft parts and the and the enormous I don't care kind of distorted rock sound of it. So that was a moment that was pretty inspiring to me. And just, but it all goes so quickly, man. When you have people who are excited about the songs and are like, yeah, I want to try this. They have their own vision in mind, and it's beautiful when it's just like, oh yeah, you tried out your idea, and it was not what I was thinking in my head, but I love to hear it. So I'll probably think of many more moments like that as I'm driving home and think, I forgot to tell Joe, but that's one that stuck out to me.
Gotcha. I do want to ask a little bit about 2 songs on the record. I don't want to do a full like let's go line by line and really acknowledge what these lyrics mean. But so one, as I already mentioned, which was Conversation on NYE, which talk to me about that song, because it really feels like, I mean, I was listening to the record out of order. I know you had the track. I didn't realize until this morning that you actually had the numbers there, and I could have clicked around.
No, that's okay. You listen to it in the order that we'll play it generally for the show on the 30th.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
But yeah.
And it's such almost a departure from what you've heard up to that point. I think within it, just, I mean, you think of like a set, it's just a good come down quickly for a moment. But talk to me about that song and kind of the story that inspired it, and kind of making it feel like you're in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's a song that kind of came about. I knew I had this musical idea that sounded more, I don't know how to say it, serious or solemn in some ways. And I didn't really know what topic would make sense with that. But then I thought back to, this, like I was talking about, these little moments that stick with you. And this friend was going through, a separation with their spouse and eventual divorce, and kind of just talking through like, we were at this New Year's Eve party, and he I went outside as he was smoking, and we were just kind of talking about that dynamic and how that time in his life affected what it's like to be at a party, at a celebration of some sort. And especially, the juxtaposition, as a guy who's been married for, 5+ years now, and dating her before that, realizing that, being single, when you're in a crew of people who are in the same stage of life together, who are coupled, and then you're suddenly single again, it really does. It's a unique type of loneliness that's hard to describe. And so this friend was trying to kind of describe that to me, and then also just talking about how, like, so he was describing that to me, and I was just talking about how, like, I'm also, like, I was comparing it to, like, your the grass is greener on the other side, almost, in that moment. And then thinking, like, I have my troubles in relationships, and everyone does too, but, like, we can encourage each other to, like, I don't know, move on and try our best, in a different way. Him in this new stage of life, being single again, and me in a stage of life where I'm dealing with issues with my partner that I didn't think I would beforehand. And so kind of coming at relationships from those two perspectives. But then also, we, this friend and I have a very goofy relationship. And so, like, inserting that, like, awkward laughter moments and kind of captured how we really talked about this, that moment. So, that's what that song is centered around.
Okay. And so then the other song I wanted to ask about, which was, I think, is the album's closer, Good Person.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
And I love a good closer that feels almost like a departure from what you're used to on a record. Like, I think of the band Ahem has this really dry, lo-fi, folky thing, and kind of you move from the more produced, lush sound that you hear on the record into a solo piano, and I think it's a steel guitar or a slide guitar before it kind of does this big kind of expanse at the end. But talk to me where that song came from, and kind of where you were coming from as the closer for that record.
Yeah. That song's about my my son, who was born this past November, and I wrote it. Another one of those instances where I had this musical idea that I didn't know what to do with, and I was thinking about the different times at which, like, I'm going to see my son grow up in ways that I won't expect, and you kind of just, like, you have moments looking at, like, a baby and realizing, like, that's where we all started, and that's you have no idea where you're going to go from there. So, like, kind of thinking about those in just a long future-oriented way, and just talking about the fact that, like, I want my son to know that no matter what happens, like, he doesn't need to, hear anything other than the fact that he's at the core of himself. He's a good person. He's like, loved and lovable, and kind of almost a reminder to myself even that like, he's his own person. Like whatever, there's going to be unexpected moments in life or decisions that he makes, but just reminding myself that, there will always be a lovable aspect about him and our relationship. So yeah, man, that's also a very kind of intimate moment song in the album. And Caleb encouraged me to just, maybe we try it on a little tape recorder I had. And he had a little, like a bigger kind of Tascam console, analog console. And, we just set it up in my living room, and Caleb was, sitting on the radiator with a acoustic guitar, and I was at the piano, and Luke had a slide part. And, I'm really proud of how that came together. A bit more nerve wracking because it was just a live take to tape. We didn't really, the effects we did after the fact, but like the vocal performance of it, that was pretty vulnerable. And so, yeah, man, that was another experience where I was like, okay, trust the process, and over everything, just kind of explore what this might sound like. And I always, an album doesn't have to be cohesive because of the sounds. It can be cohesive because of the general mood and style. And so that's how I kind of thought about this last song, fitting into the rest of the group, yet being very different.
Did you have the mind? Because that's the one that it like the last 45 seconds to a minute is like kind of fills back in with the full Beemer sound. Did you intend to have that at the end then, or was it more of we wanted to maybe put a final kind of hurrah to the record? Yeah,
no, we kind of bounced the audio from that console, or Caleb did, and sent it over to me, and I just kind of like at that moment just sent that audio to like a big reverb, big like delay reverb, like grain delay, I think it is. And just for that moment really opened it up. I don't know. That was just kind of came about from listening to it after the fact and thinking about like the desire to like make this kind of a big apex and bring it up to where the other songs of the record had been. But then like it also then comes back down afterward. And that was another one that was just kind of on the spot after the fact. Yeah. Felt right.
Yeah. So is that one of the last songs written then for this record, Good Person? Based on literally the timeline of when your son was born?
Definitely. Yep. Totally was the last one. Yeah.
Did you feel then having that retrospect in that song kind of change the way some of the other songs on the album felt to you as you're kind of thinking about, at the core you're a good person, you're lovable, and you're thinking about those awkward moments that make you who you are? Did that shift that set for you?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it definitely even like I don't know what platform I was on, but like, I played the album front to back for the first time after it was mastered. And then right after the very quiet, somber end of Good Person, it came back around to Jaws, which is this, ridiculous opening. And so to me, at first I was like, what am I doing? Why is this serious love song at the end coming back into this, goofy tongue-in-cheek opener song? But man, the more I think about it, I'm just like, absolutely, kind of shows the spectrum of emotion, and it's not just capturing one point in time. That's why what I love about this project is, it captures so many years and so many different emotions and feelings and moments. But the people I worked with made it sound cohesive. And so, yeah, that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of the bulk of the questions I have around the physical, like, bulk of the record itself. So I have more. So I did want to kind of bring it back to experimenting with your songwriting and your sound, because you do have that like hip hop and production side to it. How much of it are you leaning into here on on the record, because obviously you want that analog, that organic feel. We'll use the buzzwords here for our music production buzzwords, but did you have a desire to kind of bring it back into the box, maybe mess with it a little bit, or was it kind of did you have to fight this idea of like your habits from previous projects?
Yes, that's a very evocative word to use, because I definitely, and Caleb knows this well, other people know this well, just like I just have a tendency to go maximal. Like, there's always more in an arrangement that I can do. And if I had a symphony orchestra, that's, those parts would all be, all have a specific thing to do. But realizing that, I have people who help me decide when too much is too much. And what I've told people after I get these songs, and I just can't help but like, see where my mind goes, track all of that. It's all mostly software stuff, and effects. And then I send it back to whoever's mixing, Caleb in this instance, and Con Davison. And, they kind of parse out like, okay, what actually contributes to this part and what doesn't. And kind of reining in. And I just say, like, I'm going to give you all this stuff. Use as much or as little as you want. That I feel like that, even though it was my songs, so at the end of the day, I made the final decisions. It was really helpful for people to say, like, yeah, that contributes, or no, that really distracts from this other part. And I'm like, oh yeah, that what we originally did has just as much merit as what I'm doing after the fact of listening to the rough mix. So yeah, but man, I'm always about just letting a song evolve and experiment with it at whatever point it's at. Yeah.
And I think that kind of leads to, I wanted to ask about you did a couple, you let at least one song was remixed, Kyle McAvoy, is that how you pronounce his last name? So was that something you wanted to hand off to somebody to get a remix done, or did Kyle reach out to you, or kind of what's that connection like?
Yeah, Kyle is the founder of Sonderhaus, which is a publishing firm that we work with, and he decided he does a lot of like the lo-fi beats kind of space. Yeah. And he was just like, yeah, I want to take one of these songs. He offered it. Man, I was really excited because he does great work. He's a great producer. So yeah, and there's a couple more of those coming, not from Kyle, but I'm all about the collaboration thing. I mean, I know I kind of went to town on the Sounds Like. I just kind of did a bunch of random versions of that song just because I was like, I'm all about recycling and also just like squeezing the last juice out of every song idea. Kind of led me to be like, well, what if it sounded this way? What if it was this version or whatnot? And so, yeah, man, that's why I will always say yes when someone offers to remix something. Yeah, man.
And the Sounds Like, and then there was that one that it's a standalone track. It's, speaking of collaboration, it's the You and Me rework. That's not that's not on the album, I don't think.
It's not, no.
So where did that come from, and kind of talk about those the people you connected with?
Of course.
On those.
Yeah, that involves Habe and Wildflower and Kyle, and then Chris Bartels, who's here in Minneapolis. He's involved with his big project is Bora York, but he also does, Mum Child. He has a bunch of names. He's all over the place with the genres he's involved in. But we all were a part of Sonderhaus, and so connected through Kyle. And Kyle has this network of producers and writers who kind of exchange songs and rework them, not just for, we try to play the licensing game a little bit where, you remix a song enough to this degree. Okay. We can reuse it again to pitch to licensing places. But also it's a really fun, opportunity to everyone basically covers a part of the song. So, Chris said, what if we had Hank do the vocals for this song by Habe? So You and Me is a song by Habe, and this was a rework that a few of us had redone, and they had me do the vocals on, which is great. I feel a little guilty that, like, you know, our we have this "You and Me" song, which is amazing, and it's not on the record because it's a cover, but it's a really cool thing to be a part of, and so I hope I keep doing that, collaborating.
Absolutely. So I just have a few questions left here as we wind down. Do you have a favorite moment from working on this record that just kind of like sticks out to you, whether you're, you know, working in the studio or getting the songs back for the first time? What's one that just you think about in this process that just kind of pops to mind?
Yeah. I would say this initial trip that we did to my parents' place in Wisconsin with the 5 of us, where we all didn't really know what all this would sound like. I was holding us all pretty loosely. I was like, if we get 1 or 2 songs done, that's great. If we get 5 or 6, it's awesome. We got 5. We got 5 done, which is coming out later, not on this record. But after, like, at the end of each day, or at the end of the second day, we would, you know, Caleb wouldn't show us the rough mixes of the songs until, you know, much later after we had tracked it. And so at night we would, you know, after having like dinner or just hanging out outside, we would listen to these songs again. And so, like, it was so fun to, like, at night in this cabin in Wisconsin, surrounded by these, you know, on this lake and whatnot, we would listen to these songs that we just tracked and kind of like, I don't know, had this realization that this is like, oh yeah, this sound is coming together as a band. And so it was just super fun to listen back and listen and hear. When you're live tracking, you're just kind of like trying not to mess up the whole time, your part, but also listen to your bandmates. And it was fun to listen back to live moments, because sometimes you capture things that you wouldn't if you were doing overdubs or tracking one by one. So listening back to those moments and being like, oh yeah, you did that little lick at that point, and that is, and just listening to the different takes, man, was super fun. That's a moment that always sticks out to me.
Awesome. I did want to ask about the Sounds Like music video.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while since I watched it, but I was digging back through kind of the social media bits you were doing and this character you created for that. So talk to me about that, kind of the concept and kind of where that came from.
Yeah. Well, Bud Hooley is a very real person. We often get mixed up for each other. And so his involvement on this record was also incredible, to have a legendary producer like that be involved with this project. And so honestly, it was just kind of a documentary on what his body of work was. And he had never been really recognized in the Minneapolis, St. Paul scene for his work. And so it was more just like all of the warts and all of his process with this music video. And we were just blessed to be able to, do a live session with him that ended up, kind of fitting neatly into a music video for Sounds Like. But we worked with Dan Stewart, who's playing with us at the live at the release show on the 30th. He does a wonderful job with the video. And we worked with Bud at Matt Patrick's space, the library, and it was the perfect setting to recapture some of that live energy and re-experiment with whatever Bud had in store for us. So but I'm sure Bud will stay involved in future endeavors for sure. He'll make another appearance. I know it.
Absolutely.
I've had the feeling.
The feeling.
Yep.
couple more questions here. Who are, this might be the time where you break out the Spotify, but who are like the people who people should know about? Some of your friends, the local musicians you've been listening to, even regional that you want to shout out here?
Man, there's so many. Since I got involved with Beemer, or since I started doing Beemer, I was just like reinvigorated to explore what other people were doing in this scene. And so like I've done like 5, every month I create a playlist of, these musicians I'm listening to. So this is my like catch-all. Yeah. If I miss some names,
this is not we could be here for like 4 hours.
We absolutely could,
like
man.
Naming people.
Yep, totally. I am always in awe of just like the variety and creativeness of the different people who are working in this town, in the Twin Cities. And so anyway, I put out a lot of playlists, a playlist every month with local artists. Everyone should check that out. But some that I've really been listening to a lot lately, one guitarist and songwriter, Greta Ruth, is just an excellent, really inspiring songwriter. She just sings and plays, I believe, nylon string guitar, and that's the bulk of her songs. But she's also working on some new stuff with, I saw Andrew Broder, who's a very reputable, recognizable name in the scene, and her songs are harmonically and melodically just really ethereal and beautiful. So Greta Ruth, man, let's see who else. I mean, we've got Lucid Vanguard, who's playing the release show as well, and Carl Remus, who fronts that, who is Lucid Vanguard, and also is in 26 Bats. Writes amazing music. His a couple of his songs from a record he put out a couple years ago always come back up for me when I'm searching Spotify for a good vibe to play. So Carl and Lucid Vanguard is another one I'd like to shout out. And man, I just worked adjacent to so many people, so I have to shout out the people who I work, who I play with and are adjacent to. Luke Enyart has his own project. You should definitely check out under his own name, Luke Enyart. My friend who I've been playing with for many years, Ben Noble, put out a record recently. And so, those are two others that I am biased to shout out because I play with them. But, man, I'm always finding new people in the scene that are just blowing my mind with what they do. So yeah, man.
Awesome.
That's my summary.
And then finally here, where can people connect with Beemer online? Where can they keep up to date on everything that's going on?
I'd say I am most active on Instagram. So our Instagram, Beemer_band. And then we have, all the assets, YouTube, TikTok. We've got a Twitter. Twitter's maybe my, my small favorite just because my views are not the views of the other 4 bandmates. And not that I'm saying anything super controversial, I don't think, but man, I'm mostly just throwing out jokes out there on Twitter at Beemer_band. So give me a follow if you like ridiculous takes on things.
Well, Hank, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. The record's fantastic.
Thanks, Joe.
It should be out at this point, so make sure you go listen to it on wherever you listen to your music, and thank you for stopping by.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Ear Coffee.
The Ear Coffee podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.